Shalom, shalom, everyone here. Shalom, watching. It's another Sabbath day of the Sabbath service. That's actually what we're called. People are like, what you guys call? Limited. All right. So, as with every Sabbath service, we're going to do the Shema, which is read the mantra of Israel, and then we're going to have prayer, and then we're going to get into this week's parashah. We're going to get into this week's parashah, which is Mishpatim. We'll go around. Of course, we'll read through the Torah portion, which is this week in Exodus, and then we'll read the prophet section that corresponds to it. Then we'll read the gospel, and then we'll go back and bring up any questions, concerns, comments that we had about what we read. So I'll start with the Shema, and it's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Ve'ahabta et Yahweh Elohecha bekol lebabecha ubekol nafshecha ubekol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadabarim ha'el asher tzawecha hayom al lebabecha. And that is, should obey Israel. Yahweh, our Yahweh is one. And you are to love Yahweh, your Elohim, with all of your heart and all of your strength. And that I am commanding you today, or to be on your heart. To 916 Shan on YouTube. No, you're good. Shalom, Alicia. All right, we'll do a prayer. We'll get started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together today on your lovely Sabbath, the day when your spirit is most nigh. We ask that you would teach us this and guide us into all truths and your spirit, to give us knowledge and understanding, and most importantly, the wisdom to know how and when to apply your word in our daily walks and journeys. We ask that as we go through this parashah, that you would manifest and bring us greater enlightenment, Heavenly Father. Bring us greater love, compassion, grace, mercy, and patience. Just enlighten us on what you want us to see, what you want us to be built upon, what you want us to learn, what you want us to seek. Bring us closer and nearer to you. Help us to be whom you created us to be, Heavenly Father, to be a light, to be Israel, one who strives, prevails, and rules with Elohim. Heavenly Father, we ask that you forgive us for any transgression, Heavenly Father, and bring us so that we can be in line with you, so that we can remain holy as best as possible, Heavenly Father. We thank you for each and every last one of us here. Thank you so very much. Thank you for those who are watching, who couldn't be here, who want to be here, Heavenly Father. We just ask that you truly manifest, get us out of the way, and let you have your way in this fellowship. We thank you. We give you all the honor, praise, and glory. And we ask these and other blessings in Yeshua's name, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach na. Amen. All right. So I'll go ahead and start. We're going to be reading Mishpatim, which is the rulings. Exodus chapter 21, all the way at verses 1 to 24, verse 18. And I'll go into prophet portion. Gospel portion will give out book, chapter, and verse then. We'll also give out the we'll give out the page numbers from the Complete Jewish, so we can move faster along. So I'll go ahead and start, and then we'll go clockwise. So the next person will be Rosina to read, and then Brother Lamar, Corinthian, Brother Daryl, and Brother Hamok. All right. And of course, we read from the Complete Jewish. All right. So this is Exodus chapter 21, starting at verse 1. It says, These are the rulings you are to present to them. If you purchase a Hebrew slave, he is to work 6 years. But in the seventh, he is to be given his freedom without having to pay anything. If he came single, he is to leave single. If he was married when he came, his wife is to go with him when he leaves. But if his master gave a wife and she bore him sons or daughters, then the wife and her children will belong to her master, and he will leave by himself. Nevertheless, if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, so I don't want to go free, then his master is to bring him before God, and there at the door or doorpost, his master is to pierce his ear with an awl, and the man will be his slave for life. If a man sells his daughter as a slave, she is not to go free like the men slaves. If her master married her, but decides she no longer pleases him, then he is to allow her to be redeemed. He is not allowed to sell her to a foreign people because he has treated her unfairly. If he has her marry his son, then he is to treat her like a daughter. If he marries another wife, person, and causes his death, must be put to death. If it was not premeditated, but an act of God, then I will designate for you a place to which he can flee. But if someone willfully kills another after deliberate planning, you are to take him even from my altar and put him to death. Whoever attacks whoever attacks his father or mother must be put to death. Whoever kidnaps someone must be put to death, regardless of whether he has already sold him or the person is found still in his possession. Whoever curses his mother must be put to death. If two people fight and one hits the other with a stone or with his fist, and the injured party doesn't die, but is confined to his bed, then if he recovers enough to be able to walk around outside, even if with a cane, the attacker will be free of liability, except to compensate him for his loss of time and take responsibility for his care until his recovery is complete.
If a person beats his male or female slave with a stick so severely that he dies, he is to be punished, except that if the slave lives a day or two, he is not to be punished, since the slave is his property. If people are fighting with each other and happen to hurt a pregnant woman so badly that her unborn, then even if no other harm follows, he fined. He must pay the amount set by the woman's husband and confirmed by judges. But if any harm follows, then you are to give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. It's his male or female slave's eye and destroys it. He must let him go free in compensation for his eye. If he male or female slave's tooth, he must let him go free in compensation for his tooth. If an ox, and the ox is to be stoned and its flesh not eaten, but the owner of the ox will have no further liability. However, if the ox was in the habit of goring in the past, and the owner was warned but did not confine it, so that it ended up killing a man or a woman, then the ox is to be stoned, and its owner, too, is to be put to death. However, a ransom may be imposed on him, and the death penalty will be commuted if he pays the amount imposed. If the ox gores a son or daughter, the same rule applies. If the ox gores a male or a female slave, its owner must give their master 12 ounces of silver, and the ox is to be stoned to death. Removes the cover from a cistern or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls in, the owner of the cistern must make good the loss by compensating the animal's owner, but the dead animal will be his. If one person's ox hurts another's so that it dies, they are to sell the live ox and divide the revenue from the sale. And they are also to divide the dead animal. But if it is known that the ox was in the habit of goring in the past, and the owner did not confine it, He must pay ox for ox, but the dead animal will be his. If someone steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters or sells it, he is to pay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Chapter 22, verse 1. If a thief caught in the act of breaking in is beaten to death, it is not murder, unless it happens after sunrise, in which case it is murder. A thief must make restitution, so if he has nothing, he himself is to make good the loss from the theft. If what he stole is found alive in his possession, he is to pay double, no matter whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep.
If a person causes a field or vineyard to be grazed over, or lets his loose to graze in someone else's field, he is to make restitution from the best produce of his own field and vineyard. If a fire started and spreads to thorns, so that standing grain or field is destroyed, the person who lit it must make restitution. If a person entrusts a neighbor with or goods, and they are stolen from the trustee's house, then if the thief is found, he must pay double. But if the thief is not found, then the trustee must state before God that he did not take the person's goods himself. In every case of dispute over whether of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, clothing, or any missing property, where one person says, "This is mine," both parties are to come before Elohim, and the one whom Elohim condemns must pay the other one double. If a person trusts a neighbor to look after a donkey, ox, sheep, or animal, and it dies, is injured or driven away unseen, then the neighbor's oath before Adonai that he has not taken the goods will settle the matter between them. The owner is to accept it without the neighbor making restitution. But if it was stolen from the neighbor, he must make restitution to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by an animal, the neighbor must bring it as evidence, and then he doesn't need to make good the loss. If someone borrows something from his neighbor and it gets injured or dies with the owner not present, he must make restitution. If the owner was present, he need not make good the loss. If the owner hired it out, the loss is covered by the hiring fee. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price for her to be his wife. But if her father refuses to give her to him, he must pay a sum equivalent to the bride price for virgins. You are not to permit a sorceress to live. Whoever has sexual relations with an animal must be put to death. Anyone who sacrifices to any god other than Adonai alone is to be completely destroyed. You must neither wrong nor oppress a foreigner living among you, for yourselves were foreigner in the land of Egypt. You are not to abuse any widow or orphan. If you do abuse them in any way, and they cry to me, certainly heed their cry. My anger will burn, and I will kill you with a sword. Your own wives will be widows, and your own children fatherless. If you loan money to one who is poor, and you are not to deal with him as would a creditor, and you are not to charge him interest. If you take your neighbor's coat as collateral, you are to restore it to him by sundown, because it is his only garment. He needs it to wrap his body. What else?
The first of your sons you are to give to me. You are to do the same with your oxen and sheep. It is to stay with its mother 7 days, and on the 8th day you are to give it to me. You are not to repeat you into offering testimony for any cause, if the effect will be to pervert justice. Read that again. You are not to repeat false rumors, do men's with the wicked by offering perjured testimony, not follow the crowd when it does what is wrong, and don't allow the popular view to sway you into offering testimony for any cause if the effect will be to pervert justice. On the other hand, don't favor a person's lawsuit simply because he is poor. If you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey strayed, you must return it to him. If you see the donkey which belongs, who hates you lying down helpless under its load, you are by, but to go and help him free it.
23 verse 6. Do not deny his law as he is poor. Keep away from fraud, and do not cause the death of the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. You are not to receive a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of the righteous. You are not to oppress a foreigner, for you know how a foreigner feels, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. For 6 years you are to sow your hand with seed and gather in its harvest. But the 7th year you are to let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor among the people can eat. And what they leave, the wild animals in the countryside can eat. Do the same with your vineyard and olive grove. For 6 days you are to work, but on the 7th day you are to rest, so that the ox and donkey can rest, and your slave girl's son and the foreigner be renewed. Pay attention to everything that I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods, or even let them be heard crossing your lips. 3 times a year you are to observe a festival for me. Keep the festival of Matzah for 7 days, as I ordered you, and you are to eat Matzah determined in the month of Aviv. For it was in that month that you left Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Next, the festival of harvest, the first fruits of your efforts sowing in the field. The last, the festival of, nor is the fat of my festival to remain all night until morning. The best first fruits of your land, or you are to bring the best first fruits of your land into the house of Yahweh your God. You are not to boil a young animal in its mother's milk.
All right, verse 20. I'm sending an angel ahead of you to guard you on the way and bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says, and do not rebel against him, because he will not forgive any wrongdoing of yours, since my name resides in him. But if you listen to what he says and do everything I tell you, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and a foe to your foes. When my angel goes ahead of you and brings you to Emory, Hitti, Frizi, Kianan, Hivi, and Svuzi, I will make an end of them. You are not to worship their gods, serve them, or follow their practices. Rather, you are to demolish them completely and smash their standing stones to pieces. You are to serve Adonai, your God, and he will bless your food and water. I will take sickness away from among you.
You can read some more if you want.
Okay.
Yes, that was a short part.
In your land, your woman will not miscarry or be barren, and you will live out the full span of your lives. I will send terror of me ahead of you, throwing into confusion all the people to whom you come. And I will make all your enemies turn their backs on you. I will send hornets ahead of you to drive out the Hivi and the Kianani and Hitti from before you. I will not drive them out before you in 1 year, which would cause the land to become desolate and the wild animals too many for you. I will drive them out from before you gradually until you have grown in number and can take possession of the land. I will set your boundaries from the sea of Suf to the sea of Plishtim, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. For I will hand the inhabitants of the land over to you, and you will drive them out from before you. You are not to make a covenant with them or with their gods. They are not to live in your land, otherwise they will make you sin against me by ensnaring you.
Continue. And then I'll go to start verse. Yeah, just continue to 24 and 14.
Okay. To Moshe, Adonai said, "Come up to Adonai, you, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 of the leaders of Israel. Prostrate yourselves at a distance, while Moshe alone approaches Adonai. The others are not to approach, and the people are not to go up with him." Moshe came and told the people everything Adonai had said, including all the ruling. The people answered with one voice, "We will obey every word Adonai spoken." Moshe wrote down all the words of Adonai. He rose early in the morning, built an altar, and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to Adonai. Moshe took half of the blood in basins. The other half of the blood he splashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it aloud, so that the people could hear, and they responded, "Everything that Adonai has spoken, we will do and obey." Moshe took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which Adonai has made with you in accordance with all these words." Moshe, Aharon, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 of the leaders went up, and they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a sapphire stone pavement, as clear as the sky itself. He did not reach out his hand against these notables of Israel. On the contrary, they saw God even as they were eating and drinking. Adonai said to Moshe, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there. I will give you the stone tablets with the Torah and the mitzvah I have written on them, so that you can teach them." Moshe got up, also Yehoshua his assistant, and Moshe went up unto the mountain of God. To the leaders here for us until we come back to you. See, Aharon and Hur are with you. Whoever has a problem should turn to them.
Oh, I got it. All right, this is verse 15 of Exodus 24. It says, Moshe went up onto the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of Adonai stayed on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day, he called to Moshe out of the cloud. To the people of Israel, the glory of Adonai looked like a raging fire on the top of the mountain. Moshe entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. He was on the mountain 40 days and nights. All right, so now we're going to Jeremiah chapter 34, verses 8 to 22. Why do they have this back? Well, it says Jeremiah 33, 25 to 26. Which should we read first?
You do have it backwards.
We read them both this
Yeah, I'll read them both. I was just saying which should we do first.
Backwards?
Yeah. You know,
because actually they had put that in.
Jeremiah what?
They had mixed that in with the
33.
with the red hot sauce. It was kind of hard to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is what I'll do. I'll read Jeremiah chapter 33, verses 25 and 26 first, and then I'll read Jeremiah chapter 34, verses 8 to 22 after that. Okay.
It'll come together.
Yeah, it should, of course. Best they be reading is Ezekiel, boy. I mean, Jeremiah, boy. This reprimanding. Okay, so Jeremiah chapter 33, verses 25 to 26. This is page, what, 675? Okay. Here is what Adonai says. If I have not established my covenant with day and night and fixed the laws for sky and earth, then I will also reject the descendants of Jacob and of my servant David, not choosing from his descendants people to rule over the descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob. For I will cause their captives to come back, and I will show them compassion. All right. So, chapter 34 of Jeremiah, starting in verse 8. Okay. This to Yirmiyahu from Adonai after King Zedekiah from Adonai after King Zedekiah, or King Zedekiah, right, had made a covenant with all the people in Jerusalem to emancipate them. Everyone who had a male or female slave who was Hebrew was to let him go free. None was to keep as his slave a fellow Jew. All the leaders and all the people listened who had entered into the covenant, wherein everyone was to free his male and female slaves and not keep them in bondage any longer. They listened and they let them go. But afterwards, they changed their minds. They made the male and female slaves whom they had freed return, and they brought them back into subjection as slaves. Therefore, this word of Adonai came to Yirmiyahu from Adonai. Here is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says. When I brought your ancestors out of the land of Egypt, where they lived as slaves, I made this covenant with them. At the end of 7 years, every one of you is to set free his brother Hebrew who has been sold to you, or you proclaim freedom to his fellow, and you made a covenant before me in the house bearing my name. But then you changed your minds. You profaned my name when each of you took back his male and female slaves, whom you had set free to live as they wished, and brought them back into section as your slaves. Therefore, here is what Adonai says. You did not heed me and proclaim freedom, each to his brother and each to his neighbor. So now I proclaim for you a freedom, says Adonai, for sword, plague, and famine. I will make you an object of horror to all the kingdoms on earth. As for the men who violated my covenant by not living up to the conditions of the covenant, which they made in my presence, when they cut the calf in two and passed between its parts, the leaders of Yehuda, the leaders of Jerusalem, the officials, the Kohanim, and all the people of the land who passed between the parts of the calf, I will hand them over to their enemies, hand them over to those who seek their lives, and their corpses will become food for birds in the air and wild animals. Zidkiyahu, king of Yehuda, and his officials, and I will hand over to their enemies, to those who seek their lives, and to the army of the king of Babel, which has withdrawn. I order, says Adonai, and cause them to return to this city. They will attack it, capture it, and burn it to the ground. And I will make this. Now we're going to.
Yeah, same here.
Especially
since it's wireless.
Oh, the connection going in and out. Okay. What was happening?
The upload is less than one.
Oh, okay.
It's constantly buffering.
Oh, buffering, yeah. Okay, maybe. Yeah, we're going to Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 to 42, and also chapter 15, 1 to 20. So, Matthew.
Just to add on what you just read about, the outcome of that is also written outside of the Bible in other people's history. I was just going over last night, I believe it's called Sennacherib's Prism.
Yeah.
If you ever run across that or get a chance to read that, you can actually read from somebody else's whole other nation's viewpoint of them actually defeating Israel, defeating Judah. And they
some of the wording when David was going against Goliath, they use some of the same phrases. And I'm behind my feed you and head to the birds of just like what happened here.
Yeah.
The language. Is it sure?
So verse 38. So verse 38. Let's see. You have heard that our fathers were told, eye for eye and tooth, but not to stand up against one who does you wrong. On the contrary, if someone hits you on the right cheek, let him hit you on the left cheek too. If someone wants to sue you for your shirt, let him have your coat as well. And if a soldier forces you to carry his pack for 1 mile, carry it for 2. When someone asks you for something, give it to him. When someone wants to borrow something from you, lend it to him.
All right.
Thank you, Father.
This is Matthew chapter 15.
Yeah, right. We've been delivered
For the He over here saying, yeah, right.
We've been delivered from that. We don't do that.
Let me just put a star right there.
I'm gonna have to see that before I believe that. You got to show me where we've been delivered from that.
Oh, we'll come back to that.
Matthew chapter.
Mark that. We'll come back to that.
You want to read some more, Rosina? Since that was a small portion, you want to read some more?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Okay. Yeah, Matthew 15.
Sorry,
1 to 20.
Brother Leon caught me over here.
You gonna blame it on bless Brother Leon, huh?
Yeah, today I am. Yeah, right. Okay, so Matthew 15. All right, so verse 20. Then some Perushim and Torah teachers from Jerusalem came to Yeshua and asked him, "Why is it that your Talmudim break the tradition of the elders? They don't do Nitalat Yadayim before they eat." He answered, "Indeed, why do you break the command of God by your tradition? For God said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. But you say, if anyone says to his father or mother, I have promised to give to God what I might have used to help you, then he is rid of his duty to honor his father or mother. Thus, by your tradition, you make null and void the word of God. You hypocrites. Yeshayahu was right when he prophesied about you. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me. Their worship of me is useless because they teach man-made rules as if they were doctrines." Then he called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand this. What makes a person unclean is not what goes into his mouth, rather what comes out of his mouth. That is what makes him unclean." The Talmudim came to him and said, "Do you know that the Perushim were offended by what you said?" He replied, "Every plant that my Father in heaven has not planted will be pulled up by the roots. Let them be. They are blind guides. When a blind man guides another blind man, both will fall in a pit." Kepha said to him, "Explain the parable to us." So he said, "Don't you understand even now? Don't you see that anything that enters the mouth goes into the stomach and passes out into the latrine? But what comes out of your mouth is actually coming from your heart. And that is what makes a person unclean." Don't laugh at me, Sean. "For out of the heart come forth wicked thoughts, murder, adultery, and other kinds of sexual immorality, theft, lies, slander. These are what really make a person unclean. But eating without doing Nitilat Yadayim does not make a person unclean." Ooh, that was a mouthful right there.
We just ran with that today.
You guys are funny.
Across the street and back.
All right, so we're going to Mark. Yeah, Mark. Mark. You heard me?
Yeah, that was.
Lamar, you could pick it up, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Mark what?
Mark chapter 7.
1450.
Yep, page 1450. Reading verses 5 to what is that? 16.
1 through 20.
Oh, excuse me, 1 to 23. Sorry, Mark 1 to 3, 1 to 23. I got something else, Mark.
Mark 1.
Mark chapter 7. Sorry,
1 through 23.
1 to 23.
Okay.
The Pharisee and some of the Torah teachers who had come to Jerusalem gathered together with Yeshua and saw that some of the Talmudim ate with ritually unclean hands, that is, without doing nitalat yabanim. For the Pharisee and indeed all the Judean, holding fast to the traditions of the elders, do not eat unless they have given their hands a ceremonial washing. Also, when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they have rinsed their hands up to the wrist. And they adhere to many other traditions, such as washing cups, pots, and bronze vessels. The Pharisee and the Torah teachers asked him, why don't your Talmudim live in accordance with the traditions of the elders, but instead eat with ritually unclean hands? Yes, Yeshua answered them. Yeshayahu was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far away from me. The worship of me is useless because they teach man-made rules as they were doctrines. Verse 8, you depart from Yah's command and hold on to human tradition. Indeed, he said to them, you have made a fine art of departing from Yah's command in order to keep your tradition. For Moshe said, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses his father and mother must be put to death. But you say, if someone says to his father and mother, I have promised a korban, that is a gift of God, what I might have used to help you, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or mother. Thus, with your tradition, which you had handed down to you, you nullify the word of Yah, and you do other things like this. Then Yeshua called the people to him again and said, listen to me, all of you, and understand this. There is nothing outside a person which by going into him can make him unclean. Rather, it is the things that come out of a person which make a person unclean. When he had left the people into the house, his Talmudim asked him about the parable. He replied to them, so you too are without understanding? Don't you see that nothing going into a person from outside can make him unclean? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, and passes out into the latrine. Thus he declared all foods ritually clean. It is what comes out of a person, he went on, that makes him unclean. For from within, out of a person's heart, come forth wicked thoughts, sexuality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, indecency, envy, slander, arrogance, foolishness. All these wicked things come from within, and they make a person unclean.
Oh, that little.
I know you think about that part, y'all.
No, I in that little parenthesis says, thus he declared all foods ritually clean.
Yeah.
That's definitely added. We'll go back and talk about that later.
You said add-on?
That's an add-on, and I mean, like, no, because yeah, we'll come back to it. I was looking at the other parenthesis as well. But yeah. What we gotta go next? Are you laughing at Brother Leon or Brother Daryl?
On them
laughing at
thoughts,
Brother Daryl.
Yeah.
outside of
Yeah,
here.
over there, like, still on that I can have that porch off in his face. Gone. Gone. Oh, I'm sorry. Next is Acts 23.
Acts 23.
Page 1595.
Y'all fun.
Acts 120, verse 23, 1 through 11.
Acts 23,
Oh my gosh.
verse 1 through 11. Page 1595. We will begin. Shaul looked straight at them and said, "Brothers, I have been discharged my obligation to God with a perfectly clear conscience right up until today. But the Kohen Hagadol, Hananiah, ordered those standing near him to strike him on the mouth. Then Shaul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. Will you sit there judging me according to the Torah? Yet, in violation of the Torah, order me to be struck? The men nearby said, This is the Kohen Hagadol of God that you're insulting. Shaul said, I didn't know, brothers, that he was the Kohen Hagadol, consisted of Zadokam and the other of Peresim. Shaul shouted, Brothers, I myself am a Paris. And an argument arose between the Peresim and the Saddukim, and the crowd was divided. For the Saddukim denied the resurrection and the existence of angels and spirits, whereas it became so violent that the commander, Shaul, would be torn apart by them, ordered to have borne a faithful witness to me and Jerusalem. So now you witness in Rome.
Okay.
They're going to be taken to Rome and be judged.
Seems like the same others has continued on.
Man,
It ain't
same
stopped
others.
Except for this time,
It's still going on.
Hebrews 9. I missed that the first time. Oh my God.
Oh, Hebrews 9, starting at 15. It is because of this death that he is mediator of a new covenant, or will. Because the death has occurred which sets people free from the transgressions committed under the first. Those who have been called may receive the promised eternal inheritance. Where there is a will, there must necessarily be produced evidence of its maker's death. Since the will goes into effect only upon death, it never has force while this maker is alive. This is why the first covenant was inaugurated with blood. After Moses had proclaimed every command of the Torah to all the people, he took the blood of the calves with some water and used scarlet wool and hyssop to sprinkle both the scroll itself and all the people. And he says, the blood of the covenant which God has ordained for you. Likewise, he sprinkled the blood, both the tent. He said almost.
Okay, so it's Hebrews chapter 10,
28 to 39.
28 to 39.
Verse 28. Someone who disregards the Torah of Moshe to put to death without mercy on the word of 2 or 3 witnesses. Think how much worse will be the punishment deserved by someone who has trampled underfoot the Son of God, who was treated as something common, the blood of the covenant, which made him holy, and who has insulted the Spirit, giver of God's grace. For the one we know is the one who said, vengeance is my responsibility, I will repay. And then he said, Adonai judges people. It is a terrifying thing to fall in the hands of the living God. But remember the earlier days, when after you had received the light, you endured a hard struggle with suffering. Sometimes you were publicly disgraced and persecuted, while at other times you stood loyally by those who were treated this way. For you shared the suffering of those who had been put in prison. Also, when your possessions were seized, you accepted it gladly, since you knew that what you possessed was better and would last forever. So don't throw away that courage of yours, which carries with it such. For you are pleased with it. I will not be pleased with it. However, we are not the kind who shrink back and are destroyed. On the contrary, we keep trusting and not serve our lives.
Hallelujah. We read through. That's everything, right? I did want to point some things out, but the little parentheses and stuff like that. Of course, just go back and see if that's in the original text. There's a lot of that stuff is added, huh? Yeah, a lot of that stuff added. I mean, I go back and check translations anyway, but it's good to go do some comparative study with the original text versus other versions. But I have been looking for the past few years the Talmud, or the oral law, which actually shows the opinions of like the rabbis and sages and different rabbinical schools of thought. Looking at the time of Yeshua, the rabbis and sages, their actual their renderings, some of their judgments in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is contained in the Talmud, but the Mishnah also, it shows a lot of judgments that they rendered, and explanations, written Torah commandments that they say are the right way to go about handling things. But in Yeshua's time, there was like majorly the school of Shammai and school of Hillel, but a lot of that stuff that Yeshua was actually telling the people, or the Parashim was the Pharisees, and the Sadducees or the Sadducees, and the scribes. A lot of that stuff he was objecting some of their oral law, and a lot of this oral law it was there. Some of it didn't get like fully written until like 200 A.D. Around that time. But the what do you call it? Netalat Yadayim. That's actually, it's called the ritual hand washing. And I have that stuff here. I have screenshots of it, but you can go to a place called halakha.com, or you can go to sefaria.org, and you can see a lot of that stuff. So Netalat Yadayim was ritual washing of the hands. You had to have a certain pot with a certain amount of handles on it, and then they would, pour to the left, pour to the right, pour to the left again, and they would have to use a certain type of water. There's also the turn the other cheek thing. It does have a lot to do with judgment for somebody owes you money or whatever. Yeah, it has to do with sorry, pretty much. Yeah, so you backhanding somebody,
You get them on both sides, not just one.
Well, it's just, but it has something to do with some payment. I wanted to read it. I wanted to read that one, and then I want to read the one about cursing the father and mother if I could, because these are good things to know. About, a lot of people don't know like why he said what he said. Like, oh, okay, well, you're the person you believe in. They just want you to just be a sissy and a punk and not defend yourself or whatever. Probably just, you have to go back into the history of that time to see what he. And I started doing this stuff a few years ago, and I keep building onto it. So,
And
go ahead.
so it's similar like today.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Go ahead.
So it's similar like today.
Yeah.
Let's say you get stopped by a police officer. He's doing something that he shouldn't be doing. Should you fight him? You can. You can stand up for justice. Right. But even Muhammad said that you need to come home. So what we're looking at the application of when you have another oppressive force.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the application of law and OT, where you have your own land, you're in your own place, and you have your own government, and therefore nobody can really call your authority into a question. So I think that's what we really have is really looking at that in two different ways. As we read through the New Testament and see how it kind of handles very smooth.
Yeah.
As opposed to, just coming out and doing all these other things, because there was a time for that wasn't ready yet.
Right.
Because his disciples did roll around armed.
Right. And then we talked about that last time. Yeah. Yep. They started, right. Yeah, that's what we read in Luke 22, remember?
Basic concept of why it's so hard for us to get rid of gun laws.
Right.
Because really, constitutional, you have a right to bear arms, defend yourself. And if you're on your own, so now they don't know how to undo that.
Right.
Right.
Because like I said, you still, we, like I said, helping police the land.
Right.
And and concept, most white Americans were raised on that, so they still be policing the land.
Yeah. And then the latest law is stand your ground.
Right. So now, like I said, now it's entered into all kind of other racial areas, because now we have whole communities of Hispanic. Well, we didn't write that in there. There's the gray area, and so now they'll just come into the hood, ending up policing the land.
Right.
But it's the hood now.
Very much so. So I'm going to read something from Mishnah. It's called Baba Kama. It says, and this was the law about striking. About to do a come on. Baba Kama. I'll get back with you on what that means. Some of these words I know, some of them. It says, one who shouts at his fellow gives him a Selah, 20 zoos. Rabbi Yosef the Galilean says a mane, or 100 zoos. One who slaps his fellow, he gives him, with the back of the hand, he gives him 400 zoos. So if he split his ear, plucked his hair, spit at him, and his spit took his cloak from him, or uncovered the head of a woman in the street, 400 zoos. So this is like a public humiliation, pretty much. You publicly humiliate, you slapping them up like that, you pay for it, right? Okay, so this is the principle. Is all according to a person's honor. Rabbi Akiva says, even the poor of Israel, we see them as if they are free people who have lost their property because they are children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If someone uncovering the head of a woman in the street, she came before Rabbi Akiva, and he required 400 zoos. He said to him, Rabbi, give me time. So he gave him time. The man watched her stand at the entrance of the courtyard, broke a pitcher in front of her, and in it was Isar 8 pruchot of oil. She uncovered her head and scooped the oil, rubbed her hands on her head. He placed witnesses against her, and he came before Rabbi Akiva. He said to him, Rabbi, to her I gave 400 zoos. He replied, you haven't said anything. One who injures himself, even though he is not permitted, he is exempt. Others who wound him are liable. And one who cuts his own shoots, even though he is not permitted, he is exempt. Others who cut his shoots are liable. So this was called the Prosbul. It was called the Prosbul law. Prosbul. And it was from the school, the rabbinical school of Hillel, who came up with that.
This is a witness event or testimonial event where a a young woman was entering the court or the holy place. Not the holy place. She was going to maybe pray or, and this young man approached her and knocked over the oil, and her spirit, her righteousness wanted to clean it up, so she uncovered her head to clean it up.
Probably, yeah. This is witnesses, yeah.
What we're depicting here, and so in the process of cleaning it up, she had to uncover her head. So this is what this man had to pay for.
Humiliating her. Yeah, it was an oral law, not a written law, but it was an oral law that the women couldn't go out with the head uncovered. That's pretty much oral law. So when you look at New Testament, there are 3 different laws going on at like one time, which is you have Mosaic law, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, and then you have oral law, the Talmud, the laws of the rabbis and sages and Sadducees or whatever, and then you have the law of the land. So there's one Greek word for law. So pretty much context and history is going to tell you which law is being talked about at a certain time. So I'm actually still going over a lot of these myself, really looking at the different rabbinical schools of thought, because they each had their opinion about how to determine what a commandment meant, or what a fence law meant, or what an oral law meant. They would actually try to put these laws on top of the written law. That's pretty much what was going on. Yeah, I have more of these. So if you guys want the screenshots and want me to send them, I'll send them to you.
Are you on a website?
Yeah, Sepharia.org. That's it. That's the app. I have the app. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Search bar. Yep. Straight up. Yeah, so I had to, and there's also some PDFs. I have a PDF by Jacob Neusner and another writer, but they actually break down which rabbinical school of thought gave their opinion on which rendering, all the way from, how to light the candles for Hanukkah, all the way up to, divorce laws and stuff like that. It was really trippy.
But the divorce law is kind of like, well, there's 3. Like you said, there's
Sepharia, Sefaria.
There's the law of the land, the law of the word of mouth, and then and so Mary.
Well, there are more written Torah laws. Like if you go to Deuteronomy 20, there's Deuteronomy 2, and then there's Deuteronomy chapter 24, which actually show more on divorce or whatever and what decrees there are. But these guys, they added on they added on like it just yeah.
What is it? Fornication.
Yeah, and then actually in the Talmud they added way the reasons you can divorce. It was like really,
which brings us to today.
Yeah, so a lot of these things we have available in the Talmud. Like, so you can go to Sepharia. There's an app called Sepharia, or you can go to Sepharia.org. Yeah, and you can really see it. So the tractate Ketubot shows more of the divorce and the reasons they could divorce and all that stuff. But I just wanted to give just a little brief thing with that.
I've done some studies.
Yeah.
So, like you're talking about, there's laws and ordinances, and there's things going on. And a lot of things just like don't do this, like don't boil a kid in this much milk.
Yeah.
It's hard because some of the studies show that these are superstitions. I mean, there's like this stuff that came out of Egypt, and they were practicing certain things.
Okay.
Or it's like well, it's not like it's just like I don't want you doing all these superstitions and traditions playing with magic and all these things that they
Right.
were doing,
Right.
but they don't know that they were against the law of God. They just were doing it.
Yeah, you're right.
They
They're used to them. Yeah.
So now, you're doing different rituals and stuff like that. You're doing like playing with sorceries and witches,
Right.
As a way of life.
Right.
I'm trying to wean you and stuff.
Right.
Why did he say this? And I was some of that too. If I could get into don't do it because it's just what the Egyptians were doing.
Right.
And where they, it's hard to find out where they originated from. It's just they just been doing it for years and years and years.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I started researching a bunch of stuff. This is kind of weird. Like you said, like don't cook a
You get to
kid.
that place where it's like, okay, I don't want to go to the black book. I don't want to start studying witchcraft. And I don't want to start studying these.
But
Sometimes you have to.
you don't want to
I
studying this some of the stuff we learn.
Yeah.
And what we do now is practicing.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be real about it, you kind of to study is not always the same as to practice. Because study is just to read and to learn to get an understanding. There's a difference in, and I think that's what a lot of people have trouble with, is they put the two together. They combine and confuse practice with study.
Yeah.
Because it's like you study for a practice test, but you're not practicing that test. What?
Hey, believe me,
I'm gonna slap you with that pork chop.
Wow. Don't slap me.
No.
Pork chop.
No. I need to know what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not supposed to be doing, and I appreciate Shanti for that because. Just from what she studied already, I have gotten the enlightenment from some of the things that she's shown me that I didn't even know I was doing. That was brought to me as okay behavior, natural behavior. That is the now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like one of our biggest ones, we do as little Hilton will say. Don't go get married. No, go out and sow your wild oats, your oats and wheats and ways and rye. And that's not right. That's just sex, sowing a seed of bad mojo.
That is a good point too.
Just a setup for failure right there.
I say, like Sonok was talking about the fellowship. We so out of fellowship.
Man,
we're alone. We're not with people who, like you said, the blind leading the blind. So the importance of fellowship, like I said, because back in them days, everybody knew what each other was doing because they were always with each other.
And how ironic that is that when we talk about scattering of the people, back then we'd have 100,000 people, one place. Everybody knew what everybody was doing. Everybody knew everybody, and they were really all of one people. Yeah, you did have foreigners, but even in that, everybody knew who the foreigner was. Now you got 100,000 people in one place, and people don't even know their neighbor. Don't even know their neighbor. Got 100,000 people in one place, and a lot of people don't even know that 2 streets over is Willie Street, and they live on Jethro Street. Like, hey, I'm lost. Can you show me what Willie Street is? I ain't never been to Willie Street. Ain't no Willie Street around here.
Yeah.
2 blocks over, Willie Street.
It's 2 blocks over.
2 blocks over. They ain't even walk around your own neighborhood to know that it's the street 2 blocks over,
Never heard of it.
Right?
It's not on my block.
Right? That's another gang here.
A whole nother zone.
Right.
Man. A whole nother
At
zone.
least know your enemy.
Hello. Don't go to Willie Street. There's an enemy over there. At least.
Listen, don't go to Willie Street. But yeah, this. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I have a question.
Oh no, real quick. I was gonna say like these rulings. A lot of them are existing in our laws of the land today. I mean, this is called fair and justice, right? This is the Elohim of justice. But go ahead. Yes, that's all I want to say.
No, Exodus chapter 22, verse 1 and 2, when it was talking about the thief.
Ah, you caught that, huh?
Question popped in my head because I think I've had this question before, but I don't think I've ever properly got it answered. So I wanted to ask again because it says, when the thief comes and you kill the thief, and it's not considered murder, except if it's after sunrise. And I'm like, well, why is it considered murder after sunrise?
Because you can't see them.
Can't see.
Thank you. And
if you see somebody, because first of all, if you see the person, you're gonna know them. Y'all live in the same place.
Come on, man.
So you might.
Right.
Wait a minute, what you doing over there?
That's what.
At nighttime, it could be anybody. It could be somebody that you really hear.
Remember, this was a community, like Kanok was saying, right?
Okay.
Everybody was in the same gate. Yeah.
And that's where it brings to me, when we always say how we talk about Hasatan comes like a thief in the night, and it never dawned on me in this.
You said Hasatan comes like a thief in the night. Turn to Matthew 24. Turn to Matthew 24. Yeah.
You throw me on that one.
This was good. Matthew 25. One of them. This is the famous
it brought
prophecy.
Me to one of those, it brought me to one of those phrases that was always said to me. That's why I said it.
Okay. Read. Let's just read. Let's read a little bit.
Matthew 24, right?
Yeah, Matthew 24. Start at verse 32, and then read all the way to verse 44.
Okay. Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. When its branches begin to sprout and leaves appear, you know that summer is approaching. In the same way, when you see all these things, you are to know that the time is near, right at the door. Yes, I tell you that this people will certainly not pass away before all these things happen. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But when that day and hour will come, no one knows. Not the in heaven, not the Son, only the Father. For the Son of Man's coming will be just as it was in the day of Noah. Back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking, taking wives and becoming wives, right up till the day Noah entered the ark. And they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. We're reading at Matthew chapter, verse 39, sorry. And they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. It will be just like that when the Son of Man comes. Then there will be two men in a field. One will be taken and the other left behind. There will be two women grinding flour at the mill. One will be taken, left behind. So stay alert, because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. But you do know this: had the owner of the house known when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you too must always be ready, for the Son of Man will come when you are not expecting him.
Okay, so that's what we get. We're gonna come like a thief. So who gonna come like the thief?
The Son of Man. And again, which is why we have to study to get an understanding, because I have it and misconstrued into that it's Hasatan coming thief in the night.
So what's the difference between a thief and
That's a good question.
I didn't honestly know there was a difference.
There's a difference.
Please expound on what that
he wanted to hurry up and say it. Go ahead. He's trying to get his
don't choke.
Let me tell you. A thief don't wear a mask. A robber has a face.
Opposite.
Oh, okay. There you go. A
thief's face, a robber does not. Huh.
That's why you asked, right?
Yeah, that's why, because a thief will come and you'll never see him. A robber will come up to you, right up to your face, and take.
Yeah.
So you see him. So a robber in the law, a robber,
and that makes sense to the high
it carries a different sentence because I'm threatening your life now. But a thief, I'm not trying to touch your now. So yeah, he says, so like what God says, you rob.
And that's why I thought the thief and robber were the same. But when Sarah talked about it, yeah, I know, because a lot of the stuff that because God sees everything, and there's nothing you can hide from him. We can't hide our face from him, so we can't be a thief. So yeah,
like Seth said, I'm gonna come. He's gonna come as a thief in the night.
Well, like
you will never see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like that because, like I said, I'm probably not the only one that thought they were one and the same. So it brings good understanding.
You got, somebody jacked you.
Somebody jacked you. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. I always thought that Exodus 24 started at 9. I want to read something before that. So I thought Abraham was on to.
I'm bring that up too. Yeah. I was gonna bring this up.
I thought Abraham was on to the thought. God even respected that.
Wow. Yeah, I
so
like
that. Yeah, that was let's see. But right here it says
Exodus 24, starting at verse 9.
Yeah, Moshe, Aharon, Nadav, Abihu, and leaders went up, God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a sapphire stone, pavement as clear itself. He did not reach out his hand against these notables of Israel. On the contrary, God, even as they were eating and drinking.
Back when I used to drink heavily.
He's on a roll today.
Say you're on a roll today.
Well, that's why
I remember Joe.
We talked earlier. I said, what does it mean when they said they saw his glory?
This is what he was glorified.
Right here, where
no, this is good to discuss.
He was glorified, yeah.
This is good to discuss. Which the glory or the cloud?
No. They ate with it back here.
Yeah, they ate with They ate with
God, but that was Yeshua Messiah.
Okay, well, how do we know that? And it's not. I'm asking. This is good to discuss. How do we know?
Because in Revelation, they identify him as the Messiah. Right here, we're just saying it's the God of Israel. But when we read before, they said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He appeared to them as El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
But Moses, he came as Yehovah. But he told them, but they didn't know me as Yehovah because I didn't appear to them that way.
Okay.
So he says, God of Israel is like, what,
Well, that is my thinking because I can't go through all the debate and argument.
Well, right.
Because about a year or two ago, my father told me when I read King James, in the King James, God is Yeshua Messiah.
The express image.
Yeah, Yeshua Messiah.
I can take that.
But you're talking about from the Torah.
Take that.
But you're talking about from the Torah.
Yeah.
No. I'm talking about reading. I'm reading the King James because it's spiritual that he was Yeshua Messiah, and the Lord is one of his other, what you gonna call him, Elyon, or I don't know, But,
okay, so you
God, nobody's seen God.
Right. It says the glory. Well, verse 16 says the glory of Adonai stayed on the mountain, but Moshe went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Right. So this cloud is there, and Moshe is getting called from the cloud. Then Moshe goes to the cloud. Right. So I would say is the cloud the Most High glory. It fills, right. And then the most high glory fills without him coming off the throne. So he's pretty sending an express image to actually converse, right? And you would say that express image to converse, dine, and sup with would be the Messiah, the express image, right? That's what you. Okay.
Basically, that was Yeshua Messiah the glorified.
Yeah. Okay. I
and stayed at the foot, and Moses returned to receive the covenant.
So he's like the middleman, right?
But why did they ask even as they were eating and drinking?
Because it's so great, and his presence is so ominous, it's so great that it's apparent to me, and my heart, I know, he's so great that even while you're eating and drinking, this magnificent, vision, or this magnificent, being that would stay with you, and
after a wedding, right? What's a wedding? Ceremony to seal the deal on agreement, right? In front of your witnesses, and then you're eating and drinking, right? Is your celebration of you coming into this covenant agreement, right? So I would say,
no. I'm agreeing with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then the eating and drinking would actually, celebrate the coming together of the parties, with this agreement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we celebrate when everybody, you're partying, you're rejoicing, you're feasting, right? That's good food.
Yeah, right.
And wine, right? That's a celebration, something. So this is what we usually normally see after, a covenant is at the sealing of the deal. You got the covenant sealed in blood. That's why to break it, it has to be done with blood, right? Yeah. And that's what we saw in Yitro, Perishal Yitro. When he took a hold of the covenant, he was like, okay, now I know you the Elohim of all. Okay, I'm gonna agree to this covenant here. Then I'm gonna offer you pretty much this sacrifice here, which is the act of taking on the covenant. And then I'm gonna eat and rejoice. That's pretty cool.
So the only part of this covenant with Moshe, the only part that changed when the Messiah was here, the only part that changed when he spilled blood was that we, by word of mouth and by show of action, could come to him and be reborn again through the spilling of his blood. Everything else, all the rules and all the other stuff, still remain the same. So the only thing that really changed in that covenant was that when the Christ Messiah spilled his blood, was that we could be reborn again from, to live eternal life, or asking for forgiveness, in this act, to where here we had to be more so, which is not too much different. We had to be pure of heart, and we had to follow this covenant, out. And this is what it was written. This is how we had to live by it, or else we'd be punished according to our sin in the old covenant.
It's hard to say because you didn't have no faith.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of faith.
They didn't have no faith. Because all through, ever since with Abraham, he always had to tell them every time he went to the altar, he had to tell everybody, get rid of your idol. So the people are always serving God.
Or is that all encompass of the washing? Or can I be not washed? Or do I got to be washed first? Because he said, don't even come to the mountain till you first.
Yeah, you got to be washed with the word, man.
Well, I mean,
it's true.
You can't come to the now.
Which is the washing, right?
Which is the word.
I mean, now we have
faith and truth, the word. You believe what's in the book.
I mean, I'm just saying, because I don't want people hearing us like we omitting something now, because the blood still cleanses. So he didn't do away with water. It's not our physical, it's his blood that cleanses and washes. So we didn't do away with washing. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, I'm following you. I think
because I hear people, especially like we hear, that's why I was joking when I said, well, we've been delivered from that's why I know the church.
I know
they believe like, well, we don't have to do this now. That's been done away with. So no, it's still God's law is still God's law.
Yeah.
Well, it's sorry. Go ahead.
When you said that the Passover there, washing the feet, he told them, I'm just going to wash your feet because the rest of it you've been washed with the word. Because I have given you all the word. And you've been washed.
Well, the thing is, the what we call it, the renewed covenant, pretty much the Brit Hadashah. It's renewed, and it's just like a house contract, right?
Still got to pay the house note.
Yeah, you pay the house note, but pretty much the names are changing. Like when you buy a house, you're buying a house from somebody, right? The contract stipulations say, okay, you're gonna pay, you're gonna pay Billy Bob on the first, and you're gonna pay these taxes on it or whatever, and just it's a transference of names. So the contract is still for like the same house, right? It's just the owners or the people who are now the occupants, right? Their names are now on it. Oh no. It's just I'm just giving that as an example. So pretty much this is it's renewed. So pretty much the beginning covenant, it was just getting built upon. There's the Adam covenant, and then there's the Noah covenant, and then there's the Abrahamic covenant, and now we got the renewed covenant. So it's just being renewed. So if something's sealed in blood, it's renewed with blood. So now this renewing of the blood allows for, pretty much the majority of the time to be alleviated of the ruling for sin and death, to where have Yeshua blood that actually covers for any transgression that actually had your life that had to be paid. So
when we say new, because we've had this argument.
Oh
and
yeah.
Man, I think left the group over the word new.
Oh.
So it's like how we're perceiving. So now, what people are asking is, if it's new, what changed? Something changed, and it became new, right?
Well,
but I'm saying in our perception of the Webster definition of what's new.
Well, let's go to the Greek word of new.
So in the Hebrews, when he said, for my part, now I'm responsible because you couldn't do it. So for your part is essentially just to be thankful. And so but everybody's looking for new in terms of it's a new covenant, which means the other covenants were old, but really just saying they're fulfilled. They're not. They're not. They're still there. They're just fulfilled.
Okay, say for example, I'm asking BA. BA is going to give me the Greek word for new because he did a minute looking at it a few weeks ago. Say for example, where we're at right here, right? We're in this building. This building probably was made what in 1970 or 1980, right? 1990 something. So we'll say the 90s. This building was made in the 90s, right? So this building in the 90s, it was new. And, maybe Hanok's family occupied it in the 90s, right? And say, for example, we haven't been here before, but he has, right? So we're now coming to this building in 2018. It's to us because we've never been here before. That's the gist of the word new. I'm still trying to get the word, so he has to look at it. So pretty much it's something that you haven't experienced before. Not necessarily new, but it's new to you because you haven't heard of it before, you weren't informed of it before, you haven't experienced it before. So what are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because I was listening to you, but I actually was looking at the strong.
Yeah, what's the Strong's Concordance word? Please interrupt me because I'm like, BA trying to get the Greek word.
It's the Greek word is canis, and it's G2537.
Okay.
And it says here it's new as respects form, recently made, fresh, recent, unused, unworn, or as respects substance of a new kind, unprecedented, novel, uncommon, unheard of. The origin is of uncertain affinity. And it makes reference to, it says especially new, especially in freshness, and it makes reference to G3501. Because while G3501 is properly so with respect to age, and then it goes to what you were talking about, a building of age that we may not have been to before.
Right.
And then it goes into the G3501. That word is neos or neos neteros, which is recently born, young, youthful. And that's what got me because it referenced to what you were just saying. When you're recently born, you're in your young state, there are things that have not seen before that are new to us because it's the first time we're seeing it. It's fresh, it's refreshing, but it's been there for so long. It's been there from time ages,
right?
Because it's new to us because we weren't the start of creation.
Right.
We didn't get there at the beginning when God created back in Genesis.
Right.
So that word new, again, this is where we talk about words and understanding the depth of that meaning. That's why I laughed because I understood and I was like, yeah, that's where people get confused when they say new. You don't want your car,
you selling it to me?
It's
that
new to
car
you.
Is new to me.
I was just about to go there.
Everything about
good
that
example.
Car is new to me. I need
right.
to learn and feel out.
I was just about to go there. That's why I say
right.
new.
I say that because we don't look at things in terms of dimension. So now when I come, like I said, I go from 36 to 100, but I move to another dimension. So there's nothing new. It's just that my eyes open to something that was already there that I couldn't see because when I was a babe, or when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but now I got my second wind, I'm a man. I see the same thing different.
Right. Which is just like how it should be when we read the word, how, even though we've read the same parashah each year, but you hear us say, well, that's new. But the word was there before. It's because our interpretation, our understanding is new. It's fresh. So it's new. The enlightened understanding in that moment is new for us.
And I just say that because, like I said, we had some people that were insistent that we should know what was new. I'm looking for, show me where something changed.
Not that the word changed. The word is new too.
So as long as
we had back when.
What's that?
It's just already there.
What's that number again?
This first one or the second one?
the first one.
So the word says we are changed. So if you don't never change,
G
you ain't never gonna see
2537.
nothing.
I'm trying to spell it the right way.
Oh, wait, they spell it Kainos.
I know.
I can't
With-
spell it.
with
I can't
the-
spell it the
okay.
Greek. The
Yeah, I'm gonna spell it
Marcus.
Greek. Yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
spell
I'm
it
sorry.
the cute
The
marks.
original is
It's Kanos.
K-I-V.
Kanos.
Yeah.
Kanos.
Yeah, I'm not on Greek yet.
Because you know how people,
Shit, I ain't on that Greek, Shanti.
you know how people say the New Testament, like we don't need the Old Testament anymore.
Yeah.
Because the stuff on the word new.
Right.
So this is better.
Yeah.
So I don't need that.
Yeah.
So that's how. So I'm saying we've had
Right.
those.
And I was just about to say that too. Definition of new.
Mm.
They think that it has to be that shiny, brand new, never been used by anybody.
Yeah.
I'm the first one in it. I'm the first one to touch it. I'm the first one to have it, because it's it's supposed to be
Okay.
the thing, the it thing, to have something new.
So what we're always trying to help people do is to see things.
Yep.
Refresh the old to get that new understanding.
Yep.
Like you trying to argue. You trying to argue what
Okay.
You said it. You said exactly what I was about to say. Refresh the old. Refresh the old. And it becomes a new. So in the Old Testament, the word exists. And really, when it comes to the word, you got the Old Testament. It happened. This is what happened. And then you have the New Testament. These are the folks who witnessed, what happened, and they are bringing it to you to give you that faith, that hope. Because if you weren't there to see it, we saw it, and we're sharing it with you to let you know. And this word has been given to us, whether it was in a vision or whether it was passed down. It's because back then, if you were a teacher, then your family was a family of teachers, which kind of brings about the modern age, and how we acquire our names. They initially came from the jobs that we were given.
Mm-hmm.
So if your last name was Tyler, then you tiled out a door. If your last name was Judge, then you were a judge. It's kind of the same thing with the word. The word isn't new. It's just that it's been here.
Right.
It's just that we are new into the word.
Right.
Itself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shalom,
Yeah.
everyone.
Shalom.
Ready to take on
That firework.
Yeah.
carrots, ginger, pears, sweet potatoes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I want to get a taste of that. Thank you.
Yeah, that I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That's
from that ginger and
that's very potent there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Much
the word
appreciated.
covenant
Shalom, brother.
or Brit, it actually means to cut an agreement, and that's why it says right. When something is cut, like the animal is cut, right? Then you have that.
But the law is the law.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're new to it, right?
We have a new
Right.
about the same law.
Same
that they
thing.
couldn't
Yeah.
keep.
Right.
Now,
Yep.
now our agreement.
It's like I'm not my father. I'm not my father. So
We have the ability to, but we be in this flesh. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But
but
you mentioned cut, and that
Yeah.
brings me to one of my other questions, and it's I'll say the page number on page 676. It's Jeremiah 34.
where we were.
18 through 20. Yeah, one of our readings.
Oh yeah.
When it's talking hit the calf and how they cut it in half and walked and passed through it. And the reason I was, because you mentioned cutting, and it's a different kind of cutting in this sense. I was thinking about, is this in reference to like the woolen calf back? And that's why I was like,
Turn back to Exodus 24.
Exodus 24.
Let's start at verse 4.
That's what flashed in my mind.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know I've had to go back over this like a few times myself.
And the way that we did it last time in the back and forth.
That's what I mean.
That's a practice. It's gonna take me a little time.
Yeah.
But I'm remembering.
Huh? Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
You said Exodus 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just like when the Messiah was put across the crucifix, and it was prophesied, that he wouldn't be torn apart, or his body wouldn't be destroyed, he wouldn't be beheaded, but he spilled blood. His side was pierced, and so he was cut so that we could become anew. If there was no blood, we could not enter a new covenant. New covenant. New. Blood has been spilled.
Yeah. After we read Exodus 24, I think it'll be good to go to Jeremiah 31 to read. Leon said I was hearing of the word kainos or kinos. That means renewal on you. I'll send everyone that. I'll send you screenshots and you can see definitions of the words. I don't like to use dictionaries that go outside of the time frame of the Bible to give definitions. So I like first century AD definitions, not 6 AD or later. Right. Yeah.
To understand the time.
Right. So this is really good. This is really extensive. It's just more extensive.
I like extensive.
Yeah. Exodus 24 started verse.
In the morning, built altar at the base of the mountain. Was another one we talked about, that mountain. And set upright 12 large stones to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the young men of the people of Israel to offer burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to Adonai.
Read that again. Read verse 5 again.
These men of the people of Israel to offer burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings to oxen to Adonai.
Okay, so when you got offerings, burnt offerings, when you have shalomim or peace offerings, what is produced from that? You're burning them or you cutting them, right? Right? Okay. So continue.
Moshe took half of the blood and put it in basins.
Mm-hmm.
The other half of the blood he splashed against the altar.
Okay, so now you got these animals here. Pretty much you're sacrificing. You have to cut the animal parts, right? You have to, what they say, you cut the kidneys and the side and the flanks and all that stuff, right? So you and now you're and now you have the blood. Okay, so keep going.
Then he took the book of the covenant and read it aloud so that the people could. They responded, "Everything that Adonai has spoken, we will do and obey."
Mm-hmm.
Moshe took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which Adonai has made with you in accordance with all these words."
Okay, so pretty much that actually, the Brit is not verbatim in here, the word Brit, but actually it is verbatim. So the covenant, anytime you see the word covenant, it's actually the word Brit there. So when you do have the Brit, you do have the cutting. So pretty much in verse 5, you got these burnt offerings, you got these peace offerings, you're sacrificing them, you're slaughtering them. You gotta and yeah. Like, yo, let me cut a deal with you. That's where we get these phrases from, right?
Let me cut
a deal with you.
So
right.
New deal. I'm gonna cut this in the new deal. The new deal.
Yeah. Okay, so let's read Jeremiah 31. And I think this will go with what you were asking.
31.
to get it understanding.
Start at
let's start at let's start here. 30. Okay, so it's 30 and in parentheses 31. Yeah, let's start there.
So verse 31, 30? Say that
30,
again.
31.
31.
Mm-hmm.
33.
Page 670.
Okay, still. Okay. 31.
Here the days are coming, says Adonai, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers on the day I took them by their hand, brought them out of the land of Egypt, because they, for their part, violated my covenant.
Right.
Even though, wait, let me read that again.
Hmm.
I took them by their hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt,
Mhm.
because they, for their part, violated my covenant. Even though I, for my part, was a husband to them, says Adonai. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those, says Adonai. I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will any of them teach his fellow community member or his brother, know Adonai, for all will know me, from the least of them to the greatest, because I will forgive their wickedness and remember their sins no more.
All right, that's pretty much it.
That's why I was reading Hebrew. That was what he repeated in Hebrew. What he was saying for his part.
Right.
So what they're looking for something that changed, but nothing changed other than the agreement, like you said. For my part,
And
I started to take shoes off and read them.
Right. And if we look at this,
There goes
if we
that
look
deal.
at this, and he says how he's going to bring his new covenant in.
Mhm.
He said it will be anew because he won't no longer need to come and say, here I am, I will show you a miracle, I will present this to you. He says, everyone will know my name. So whether we choose to accept him or not, we all already know his name. So, it's already written. It's already here. So
he don't need our help.
no, we need his.
Yeah, that's the thing. We need him.
We need his, and then it's really up to us. Just hearing these verses, it's showing that it says it.
No, I'm gonna take it to the head.
I will put my Torah within them and write it on their hearts.
Write it on our
I
heart.
will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will any of them teach his fellow community member or his brother, know Adonai, for all will know me, from the least of them to the greatest. From the least to the greatest. See, in our hearts, we all know. It's just about us accepting the fact that we know.
Gotta choose to accept, right?
At this point.
So read the footnote at the
The
bottom.
Holy Spirit.
Oh, you should read the
footnote.
We keep making mistakes.
Okay. So the footnote
Oh,
says,
oh, here you go. Yeah.
I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. This section, often called the New Covenant, more properly should be called the Renewed Covenant, since the Hebrew word for new in this passage is the same word used a new moon,
Chodesh.
a new year.
Yeah. See?
For both the moon and the year, God does not make a whole new moon.
What we been talking about? Make it plain.
That is wholly
Right.
unfamiliar. He recreates these instead and renews them. Indeed, they are different from this time forward, but the only aspect that is different about this renewed covenant with the Jewish people, the original audience, is that God will write the law in their hearts and minds. So Shaul use of the concept in 2 Corinthians 3:3, and this entire section of Jeremiah is quoted in Hebrews 8.
So pretty much the covenant. Well, remember the Torah was written on stone, right? The Torah was first written on stone, but now the Torah gonna be written on some flesh, so it can penetrate, man. I was gonna read Ezekiel 18 because that would go with it. Ezekiel 18, 7:3-5.
Y'all making people mad today. Ooh.
What'd you say?
Y'all making people mad today.
Why you say y'all? You the one that been starting stuff too. You got your own phone. Shanti, you talking about me blaming folks.
I put me in
I say
I'm not the only one. He said that to me earlier. So now you got your piece. But don't be grouping me with y'all.
but I know why he's saying it.
But no, explain to me, why did he say that? Why did he say that?
Because he's stubborn as a mule.
Well, besides that, is there another
Because he's stubborn as a mule. Goodness gracious. Okay, so
what's the Hebrew name for Ezekiel?
Yehezkel.
No.
Oh man, where? Okay, so I want to read it here. I'll read it from here first. Okay, Ezekiel 18. I'm gonna start at verse 25. It says, "So now you say Adonai's way isn't fair. Listen, house of Israel, is it my way that is unfair, or your ways that are unfair? When the righteous person turns away from his and commits wickedness, he will die for it. For the wickedness he commits, he will die. And when the wicked person turns away from all the wickedness he has committed and does what is lawful and right, he will save his life, because he thinks it over and repents of all the transgressions he committed. He will certainly live, not die. Yet the house of Israel says Adonai's way isn't fair. House of Israel, is it my ways that are unfair, or your ways that are unfair? Therefore, house of Israel, I will judge each of you according to his ways, says Adonai Elohim. Repent and turn yourselves away from all your transgressions, so that they will not be a stumbling block or a rock that brings guilt upon you. Throw far away from yourselves all your crimes that you committed, and make yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. For why should you die, house of Israel? I take no pleasure in the death of anyone who dies, says Adonai Elohim. So turn yourselves around and live. So he's pretty much saying, make yourself this fleshy heart, not this rock hard, stump block heart, so he can actually penetrate. And each one.
He said nothing about me.
I knew it was coming. Your explanation right there wasn't helping nothing.
Sorry. So yeah.
I knew it was coming.
So that's what we see. Like when I was saying in the beginning, the laws or the rulings are just and fair, right? The laws and the rulings, like, hey, you get into a fight, a pregnant woman, she lose the seed. Okay, somebody got that. Your ox. If your ox goring out somebody, you taking that's pretty much a treasure. So you got to recompense here. These are just are fair. Just fair.
And especially if you knew that ox was
that's what it
already
said.
done it before. You didn't tie it up.
Yeah,
it down,
right.
You didn't,
Don't laugh, Regina. Don't laugh.
Nowadays, my wife loves court TV.
Oh yeah.
I can't. Anyway, you might be listening. But, nowadays it's about the pit bulls, right?
Yeah.
Because all these people get in trouble because that dog attacked a dog before.
Mm-hmm.
So now he attacked the dog again. So now he has to be put down.
Mm-hmm. He that ox.
And you have to pay the owner has to pay a fine.
Fine, yeah, restitution.
And compensate for what that dog did.
Mm-hmm. And look, see, to what you said, I have seen where that pit bull has been documented as attacking before.
Yes,
and then that pit bull attacks again, and then the court says, oh, well, that's okay. See, now that becomes a sin of that one who's judging, you know, who has to pay for that now, not the who actually, you know, who actually that is. You know, the judge has made a ruling, so now that falls upon the judge.
You know, and I know this might be totally out of context, and it might not be, but I don't usually watch the news because it really irritates me. Then I only watch it when the father says to watch it, but I happened to be watching the news last night, and then it was a documentary on ours, and it was talking about the first whistleblower of the whole Wells Fargo scam like that, and they were talking about how you know, it like a year later when she first blew the whistle, everything came out, and they discovered all these things, so it went up to the higher courts. But you know, we were talking about the judges and how the judge ruled, and there was all this evidence, but they had this one little thing about she didn't do her job in compliance, but she would have been breaking the law. So now the law is saying that she's not right. And this is how we're talking about. You've got all this evidence talking about. You've got all this evidence. You didn't see the ox or the dog do all this stuff, and you're not making the owner accountable. But you're putting it out, and we see it all the time, and it's I just yeah, man. And she still hasn't gotten any compensation, so we see it all the time. Those who
against her to be a whistleblower. How is that
right?
And that's what they're always arguing with compensation. You know, so the law, you know, they play favoritism, depending on the community, depending on the color of the skin, depending on a lot of different variables that they throw in there. Well, you know, it wasn't that bad. Right. Now,
like you said earlier.
But now here, it really wasn't that bad, but now you made it, you know, you made a mountain out of a molehill, you know, so you made it more than it was. Because you don't favor these kinds of people. So, but like I said, but the law and the orders don't change. It's like I said, it's the human factor of people.
And also, this means that the nations, you know, the nations we were supposed to take this covenant to get them to take a hold of, right? It's open to them now through the shed blood of Yeshua, right? They come into the fold. Right. Hey, when you take a hold to the agreement now, you know what I mean? Get that Deuteronomy 20. But I think that was all that I wanted to bring out. Like I said, if you guys want the screenshots of the Talmud or whatever, cool. If you want the references to the oral traditions in the Mishnah about, you know, turning the other cheek, cursing the mother and the father. If you want PDFs outlining what the Sadducees believed, you know, they didn't believe in resurrection, but they believed in the Sheol thing. I got that too. Just let me know.
Can you put the links in the group message chat?
I can do that. Sorry, Brother Joe.
I was gonna say I wanted to ask you about that. What you had on the turning of the cheek?
I read it.
Huh?
I read it.
Okay.
I can send it to you definitely too. I'll definitely send it to you. I'll put it I'll send them in the group chat in the messenger.
Okay.
I think I'll do that. Yeah, they have some wild.
Well, yeah,
You know? So go ahead.
Yeah, because we get into interpretations, so everybody has a different interpretation of one thing to the point where nobody's even asking for what was the truth.
Truth, right?
You know, so I remember Corinthian was moaning when we was reading about the fig tree. And he was stuck on the fig tree. I heard him. We still can't figure out that fig tree.
I have some stuff on the fig tree. If you read Judges chapter 9, it shows you a little bit of what the fig tree is and represents, especially the leaves on it. But I'll give you guys some more stuff. But the trees, of course, because me and BA talked about this before, but the trees more so in the scripture represent like people. especially like the leaders or the kings or whatever. And then the mountains represent like the kingdoms,
So you put,
the
so you
sovereigns.
put in the parable.
Mhm.
We didn't just say what we needed to say.
Yeah.
Parable,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So
Right.
you hid it.
Yeah.
So, who, but you didn't supposed to hide it from me.
Right? You're supposed to keep the secret thing. Yeah, I watched the 9-part series from Dr. Deanna Dye on the fig tree. It's like 30 minutes each of a session. I can send you the first link, and then of course you can find the rest of the 8. But she did a really good job, huh? I'll post that in the group too. Yeah, so it's been helping me a lot with understanding these trees, the kingdom, the garden, yeah, the temple, man, just a whole bunch. But I'll send that stuff too. It's really, yeah. I know.
I did about a year-long study of parables, and so
It's really tricky.
you have to get away from people.
Yeah.
Because everyone want to tell you what they. Man, that doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
I know it's something more. And so
I've come to find that because I've been into my word here lately, and I pray in the morning, before I read the prayer song, I get into it, and I find that if you open your mind and you ask for wisdom, and you read the word, you're going to get exactly what it means. But if you're not ready, then you're going to be as confused as
that part too.
How many different ways the word could mean diddle, dizzle, dizzle, diddle, diddle.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to understand. And even in a parable, you will understand it because the context is there. But if you're not ready, then you're not ready. You need to continue to, search for the spirit to come and you need to be ready for it to, give you what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing is that those demons, they out there and they'll show trick and fool you.
Right now.
Oh yeah, they'll trick and fool you. They'll have you thinking, you'll read something, you say, oh, that's what it is. Yeah, the spirit told me. Something told you, but it wasn't the spirit. It was just the wrong spirit.
It wasn't the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, you do have to be careful, right?
I talked to I was talking to one of my brothers the other day. I said I was praying, and this brother has come up in one of our meetings before where I came, and I was like, the brother was trying to tell me, what do you want out of life? What are you searching for? And I told him, I said, I'm searching for my purpose, what his purpose is for me, and I'm just waiting on him to come to me and deliver me my purpose, That shut his world down. So a few weeks later, here it is, I'm praying, and this brother's name come up in my prayer, and I'm like, where's that name coming from? That brother is the last thought in my mind. So, I took my Bible, and I took our lessons because I have been studying, and I went to go speak to him. And as I go to speak to him, it was ironic that he gives me this little book on spirituality. Oh, look at this, and the way the pyramid of the little book for the spirituality says how you're supposed to receive your spirituality. It was ironic. It was set up how the temple was set up, and with me having knowledge of how the temple was set up, how it's placed, and how it looks like the human body, and how, but at the same time, he was trying to get me interested in this spirituality thing, and I'm throwing questions at him. I'm like, so basically all this information is like Egyptian studies and this and that, not knowing that I know what comes out of Egypt, So and I'm like, so this is what you got right here. And so I asked him, I said, well, do you believe in magic? And he said, well, I guess that depends on what your definition of magic is. you know. And I said, okay, well, if you want me to, I can give you a definition. But well, before I answer that, if you can give me a definition of magic, then I can explain to you. I said, Father, my feet's burning and my eyes are red. Rush me up out of here with your wings.
And eyes are
Get
red.
me up out of here
Oh
while
my
I'm
gosh.
burned.
Did you look up the alchemy?
Oh no, I didn't look into the alchemy yet.
Yeah, that'd be good to me.
But what we have
But I
to
mean,
do-
that's what he was thinking.
Yeah.
We have those in our group, man. They're into the mystics and the Gnostics and all this.
Hey, remember, there's only one spirit.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one spirit.
There's only one right spirit.
No, let me finish. Now, there's only one spirit, and then there's the disobedient spirit.
But they still spirits.
It's still, what I'm getting at is the same spirit in when Adam sinned, the disobedient spirit took over. He had a lot of knowledge. He got the same knowledge. He's a copycat. He's a deceiver. And see, what the church had been tricking to not believing in the spirit. That's why we miss a whole lot. It's not. It's, as he said, you got to know him in spirit and truth. Word is the truth. But we have to also know him in the spirit. In other words, if we don't know him in the spirit, how to deal with the spirit, then we can't deal with this other
The spirit realm,
Right.
yeah, because
We can't deal with this other spirit. Yeah, everything come out of Babylon, but it was a lot of the same stuff is all came from it just to be perverted. He's used the wrong way.
for discernment.
Yeah.
And pray for discernment.
It's all the same spirit. The righteous spirit and the disobedience part.
Mischievous.
Yeah, the only way we can be righteous is through him. He got to give it to us.
So what does he mean when he talks about familiar spirits?
Familiar spirits?
Woo!
Familiar spirits. Those are spirits that are hanging around you all day long.
Yeah, research the familiar.
The familiar spirits are spirits. So everything is a spirit. Habits. Those are familiar spirits. Like he would tell them when they went into the wrestling, don't pick up the habits of the Canaanites and all those people. Don't pick up their habits, because those are spirits. Don't worship their God. There's only one God. I'm the righteous one.
That's what he said when he brought him out of Egypt. He
kind
said,
of hard
instead
to
of taking you through, what was that? Peru? I'm not Peru. He said, I'm going to take you around a long way. He said, because if I take you this way, then you might see the war and the things that's going on over there, and you might not have faith in me. You might turn around and flee back to Egypt, back to slavery, where I just brought you from. So you got to take you around the long way, so you don't see that.
There is something I wanted to bring up, but this is something probably to go back and check out. Hebrews 1:9. We read verses 15 to 22. I was talking to BA about this before, like a couple weeks ago, I think. He brought up Romans 7, and he was asking me which law was being talked about in Romans 7 in the beginning verses. So Hebrews 9:15 says, it is because of this death that he is the mediator of a new covenant or will, and the he pretty much is Yeshua, right? Okay, so I was thinking there is a connection between this and what a covenant is, like a marriage agreement. Because the father says he was a husband over in Jeremiah, right? That's their husband. So we're agreeing to this. I will be your Elohim, you will be my people. That's a taking in a marriage or an agreement or a covenant. So in Deuteronomy 24, Corinthians was saying where this law of divorce. That's where it is. So Deuteronomy 24. Deuteronomy 24, starting at verse 1, says, suppose a man marries a woman and consummates the marriage, but later finds her displeasing because he has found her offensive in some respect. He writes her a divorce, gives it to her, and sends her away from his house. She leaves his house, goes, and becomes another man's wife, but the second husband dislikes her and writes her a get, pretty much a certificate of divorce. A get is called a certificate of divorce. He gives it to her. And sends her away from his house. Or the second husband, whom she married, dies. Right? In such a case, her first husband, who sent her away, may not take her again as his wife because she is now defiled. Well, in Jeremiah chapter 3, the Most High divorced Israel. In the book of Hosea, he says, I'm going to take you back. And so now I think what's going on in Hebrews 9, which further explains how the father gets to marry this first wife. And I think it also ties in with Romans 7 and what Shaul was saying, there's a death of something in Romans 7. Yeah, that's okay. But that's all I have for today. One.
And then Romans 7.
Yeah.
I want to go back and see. You brought it.
Really quick, hold on one second. When you have me go to Matthew, I can't remember the chapter. 24. I was talking about the thief.
Yeah.
Okay, that was, okay.
The covenant on will.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Brother Darrell.
When you talk about the splitting of the animal, I think you first asked, like, what did it represent?
Mm.
And then we went, I don't know if it was answered, because I thought it represented the Red Sea, splitting of the sea, they're passing through.
That could be it too.
That's how I was all taught. It was I'm getting, another opportunity to pass through, to come across, to enter, to pass over.
Mm-hmm.
So they split the animal, and they had to pass through the same way they had to pass through the Red Sea.
So that's water and blood.
Right.
Which goes back to the other scripture when Corinthian had reading his part. It said that not all is done in blood.
Yeah.
But I think
that was Jeremiah, wasn't it?
I underlined it. It might have been.
When you're born again, you're born again of what? Water and
right.
spirit.
And that's
that water and that blood, man.
I wanted to go back to that particular scripture.
Which takes us back.
Right.
To even talk about the piercing and the renewal, water and blood spilled. So
see, you see it. You see it.
There was a lot of things that represent.
Man.
Because the only place in the body where blood and water flow is through the heart. So that signified that he was clinically dead. So he couldn't come back and say he was in a coma or Hebrews. It meant clinically he was dead.
Yeah.
Some people say for some smart aleck doctor to come and say he was in a coma.
Dang.
He was dead.
The things they come up with.
I got a pause.
Are you still trying to find?
It's not
No.
You were
yeah, it's not Jeremiah.
Yo, this is definitely fire.
Oh, it's good. It needs energy. I can feel it.
Yeah, that is fire water.
I thought you were in Jeremiah 36.
No, I'm thinking about.
And then you had talked about the golden calf.
I was there, but when he read, it was talking about.
We read Mark. We read
that
Matthew.
Not all things are
Acts 23
that are purified or renewed in blood. There, we read that.
In Acts was in Acts.
Was it Hebrews?
Let me go to Hebrews.
So we was in Jeremiah 34:8. I mean 34. We read 8 through 22.
There it is. Thank you, Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's verse 22. In fact, according to the Torah, almost everything is purified with blood indeed. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. And he just,
Almost
you know,
everything.
his brain was like right there because he emphasized almost. And that's where, you know, it comes back to what we're talking about. Water is that other purification.
When they passed through the blood, it was synonymous with your sins are forgiven. You're entering into a new covenant on the other side.
But I like how you made that reference because I don't even realize that if I said it, I don't recall saying it because I was trying to understand was the splitting of the calf the same as when they were talking about the golden calf and the making and that in not that they broke apart that golden calf, but the fact that they built it and by idolizing it, it separated them from the Father. And that where my mind was going, where when they were talking about the cutting of the calf, I understood cutting as a separation in another sense. And that's why I was like, is that the same thing? And that's where my mind went. But I like, you know, the fact that your spirit caught whatever I might have said to bring it back to get that understanding, because I never looked at cutting in the calf when we're talking about a new covenant as part of parting the Red Sea. I am giving you something new to pass through. And that was also what brought me to remembering this scripture talking about not everything is done through blood, but also through water.
The water, the spirit, the
teaching. New covenant and a sense of purification and a renewedness of that relationship that you have with the Most High. He's given us so many chances and so many times of getting that relationship back with Him that, you know.
Yeah, that's the washing he was talking about in 1 John. I'm washing you, and cleansing you,
and that would be
from all sin. And so now we can't take that part out. We just say I'm born again, like we just went straight from here to here, you know, from 0 to 100. No, you went through some things,
right?
And I had to build your character, and I had to grow you.
And the process.
And then in that book, we're talking about from prostrating to being circumcised, which in the circumcision are being, you know, born anew or forgiven.
Yeah, you're cutting. And what is circumcision? You're removing what's in the way, so something can actually be penetrated into.
So how did they
or something that protrudes.
That's what you just said.
How to see from the cross?
Well, they that's right. They repented right there to Messiah, you know, and then they were torn apart, and you know, and he was the only one who was left, you know, that was whole.
He said, "Remember me,
Remember me
when you come into your kingdom." And then he just said, "On this day,
you are in the kingdom." Oh man,
it was right there.
She had to be on the cross too, man.
And there was one on each side of him. So, you know.
But the word says that we're crucified with Christ.
Yeah.
So was he crucified with Christ?
Oh,
he was crucified.
Yeah.
We got to crucify every day. You know what I mean? Right? Man, crucify us for every day.
Small enough to actually go in.
Sometimes I don't know if I'd rather be there or be here at this time. It was seemed like it was.
Well, we all waiting on the last trump
to be close to him back then, you know. But I don't think it really was. It would just seem because he was here and present, you know. He's always present, but you know,
You didn't want to be the ruler.
Yeah, because back then you stepped wrong and it was over. You know, so now we've been renewed to where we just gotta find it in our hearts. You know,
if he breaks out in here, might be one of us might be there.
We'll burn up. It's gonna be a fire. It's gonna be a fire.
Somebody wants to tell them that the weight loss is burning in calories when you out. But I wanted to go back to Matthew chapter 5, where we read in verses 38 through 42. Matthew 5. There was a few of us that had some comments about this particular section in the verses. Starting at verse 38. Matthew 5, 38.
38.
It says, "You have heard that our fathers were told, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you not to stand up to someone who does you wrong. On the contrary, if someone hits you on the right cheek, let him hit you on the left cheek too. If someone wants to sue you for your shirt, let him have your coat as well. And if a soldier forces you to carry his pack for 1 mile, carry it for 2. When someone asks you for something, give it to him. When someone wants to borrow something from you, lend it to him." We all made various comments on this, and I have to just personally say I have trouble with this.
Why do you have trouble? That's a good question, because I had trouble with it too. But why do you have trouble with it?
All of them.
This is a good discussion.
Which one?
I'm gonna break it down for you.
Break it on down.
First off, I the way that I grew up, you don't lay hands on me. So if you hit me, I'm gonna potentially hit you back. So me getting that whole turn the other cheek thing.
Well, what do you think it means? What do you think turn the other cheek means?
Well, now in understanding the relationship that I have with the Father in a deeper walk, because I know that I was not always perfect and I was born in sin, I can't be grudging against someone who has angst against me. And it's not always a physical slap, so to speak. or that physical counter of slapping of the cheek, or someone eyeing you or having angst against you. You have to still show love and kindness.
Okay. If I could, I was what I was reading earlier when we first started was the sayings of Yeshua are kind of hard for us to understand in this day and age if we don't know Yeshua's audience. What I now know is that he had an audience of Pharisees. He was responding to them about things that was pertaining to them. I thought it was something that do with self-defense. Like, oh, okay, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, let them get the other one.
Right.
These renderings here are actually counters to, these are Yeshua countering what the rabbis put in place of their rulings about debts. That's why I was reading from the Talmud or the Oral Torah earlier, and I'll definitely send you the screenshots, but they would impose these debts on people, or they would, say, these debts, they pretty much were burdens, right? So they had these renderings where if somebody slaps you on the cheek or public humiliation, then you're to pay these people. So that's what I was reading. I'm sorry. Yes, there were definitely. I can send you guys this book. It's called. It helped me a lot. Yes,
but I'm understanding what I'm hearing is it's not necessarily, like I said,
it has nothing to do with
not a
self-defense.
physical slap or self-defense. They're slapping you with a fine.
They're slapping you in the face and then slapping. If you get slapped in the face, pretty much for public humiliation, you got to pay a fine.
Okay.
So
Literally slapping in the face, but it's paying the fine.
So in other countries in Europe, it still happens today because I was in the military.
Is that like removing the glove?
But still,
no.
But still today, like, you know, you pay on the spot, even today in other countries. So if you know, cops are walking down the street, they witness a crime, and here's the cost, and you pay it or you go to jail. So if you can pay it on the spot, you don't have to go to jail.
But the thing is, sometimes these debts they could be paid.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. It's called prosbul. Prosbul. I will send you guys this PDF. It actually talks about if it could real quick, it actually talks about a lot of these things. A lot of these things Yeshua was telling the Pharisees, it actually brings out to light. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they had these oral laws and they had these rulings and renderings, and if you don't know the history of the different schools of thought and what they taught, you know, like Hillel taught his students, okay, you can divorce your wife for anything. And then Shammai taught his schools or his students, well, okay, well, you got to pay this debt, but we're not going to relinquish it from you after 7 years. You're going to have to pay this debt. You know, they had these different schools of thought. So this right here has to do with what you call a prosbul. Hillel did it. Hillel. Pros did it. Hillel. Prosbul. Prosbul. Pretty much was a loophole about these debts. So this right here, a lot of people look at it as Yeshua was teaching against self-defense. It really has something to do with, you know, public humiliation, debts, and being able to pay those debts and loopholes and things of that nature.
Read the footnotes. They always help, you know, especially you know, he gives footnotes to give some of that help you. Because there's a footnote about what you just read.
I usually forget about the footnotes.
Right.
For bringing that to my attention, especially because the last footnote we had, I'm over here listening.
It explains that to me now. It explains everything.
It explains,
like you said, it puts us in the time frame and the culture of what they were doing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so it says for verse 38, eye for eye, and tooth for tooth. In Exodus 21:24 and Deuteronomy 19:21, the expression eye for eye is not that God commands revenge, but instead desires it to be controlled or limited. The Mishnah shows that rabbinic thinking on the matter of legal damages goes far beyond the simple lex talionis, an eye for an eye. If someone wounds his fellow, he becomes liable to compensate the injured party for 5 different aspects of the injury: damage, pain, healing, loss of time from work, and insult. That sounds like what do we call that? Workers' comp?
Not workers' comp. What they call it?
Liabilities, man.
Yeah,
call it in court nowadays.
He said Judge Judy, but
that's what it is.
I'm suing for damage.
Damages and recompensation. Yeah.
Compensation.
Rashi comments on Exodus 21:24. If a person blinds his neighbor's eye, he must give that person the value of his eye and no more. Baba comma. Baba Ganoush, Baba comma.
That's what I was reading.
No, but I got you.
Right. He said the footnotes take you there.
Yeah. That's what I do. I read the parasha.
Yep.
Then I go back and I'm looking for every thing I can to break it down for me. If I have a question about something, I'm put notes on some of these interpretations.
Right.
And then sometimes, like I said, he'll give me the reference they go to.
Yep. That's it. Go to that Sefaria. Take you there.
So the way it would actually play out, that way, because like when we picture this, sometimes we just picture like a high school fight. You know? Right. But this is really like they're at court.
Yeah.
The way it plays out is if they're at court and the person has to kneel, you know, there's 2 parties. One party is saying, hey, and there's another party that's trying to defend himself. So one party. So when the judge has provided, a sentence or whatever, or say, hey, basically this is his judgment. Well, one party,
you want the book?
One party would go to the other party and literally smack them on the cheek, which she was saying it's an act of shaming. And then if you were slapped on the cheek, that was a sign that you had to pay a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it was.
Wow.
So it's the context of court.
So if you were the one slapped,
yeah,
you had to pay the fine, not that the offense was put upon you.
It was your offense.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You were the offender.
Because really, and I like how when we come and talk about it.
Thank you, Lamar. You put that in better terms. Thank
Brother
you.
Leroy just asked a question.
Brother Leon, Lord, what he said?
He said, "What if you slap back?"
Level, right. Right.
Well, that depends on where we at. That's a dude to the back. Well, if we here, it's a fight.
So your one cheek is slapped, but if your fine is high, you get both cheeks slapped?
No. Yeshua just,
you're supposed to turn the other cheek. You're supposed to make that baby, turn the other cheek and make that baby.
Man, I heard, like said, one of the church theories, the order in which he said if he slaps you on the right hand of God. So now, for them to slap you again, they have to go through him.
Wow. That's what they say. Yeah, you know what?
I'm a serious deep thought right there.
I'm grateful that we have access to a lot of this information now that we didn't have before. You know what I mean? It was always here, right? Have before. You know what I mean? It was always here, right?
You can preach on that. You go all day about it.
Oh my gosh! Right?
Yeah. But are two different things.
Like I said, if I don't know the word, I'm not familiar with the spirit.
Right.
That sounds good.
Right. It will.
And
I'm gonna go out there.
Knowing the history.
I'm gonna go out there offering my cheek.
I'm gonna get some of the cheese right here.
He's like, go and get some of that cheese. This is funny.
Don't listen, because I know, like, in churches, we also don't read the Talmud, don't read the Kabbalah.
I ain't said it yet.
Oh,
I would definitely
She hasn't said it yet, but she would be in the group text.
I'm working
so in this case, you have to send it
library, right?
No problem.
Or just email it to me separately.
No, I'm still there. It's a good thing to have.
My Quran, because these are the histories.
And I printed out the book of Joshua.
What?
Yes.
I keep it on my phone.
I sent the link to my job, and I printed so I can read the book offline when I'm at home.
Right on. All right, so
yeah, these I have a couple study Bibles, so yeah, they do help. Like I said, they're study Bibles, so they're trying to give me other references.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times, I know.
Yes.
Like I know the women Bibles, man. Y'all love them. The women reference Bibles.
I don't have none of them.
They already highlighted and everything.
Believe it or not, I actually have one and I don't like it.
Oh, you got one?
My dad bought it for me. It's a King James Woman's Study Bible, and I honestly don't like it. And I've had
what's in it?
The heart to tell him.
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Go get it.
You was crazy.
I just, and I think I actually would probably have to go pick up and look at it because I haven't looked at it in a while. But that was I had not picked it up and read it because it was during that time when I was having trouble reading the Bible, and that was before enlightenment. That was before waking up.
Right.
And so now I haven't touched it since, but I probably could pick it up now, and it would help in reference to everything that I'm reading.
Right.
But then it was because it's so broken up, and it has a lot of, I called it commentary.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of commentary, but I understand the difference in opinion and commentary. So some of that commentary is helpful in getting a fuller understanding. So I have to make myself read the commentary.
Yeah. Right.
That's the difference where I got to an understanding. So
they
now
had to grow on me because I heard someone preaching that you can preach. There's two ways you can preach. You can preach from the curses, or you can preach from the promises. So I can take the same scripture and I say, if you don't do this, I'm going to preach the curses on you. But if you obey and do it, then I'm going to preach from the promises. And then we don't have to talk about, the consequences of rejecting my word. We don't even have to talk about it. But if you refuse to listen, then I'm gonna come at you from the curses. And I'm gonna show you. You're gonna get a whoop. If you ever been whooped before, so when I look at the commentaries, I look at what direction are you coming from? Like I was talking one time about how we approach ministry. How do you deal with really, really hard to deal with people? And then here's people that are easy to deal with. They just love. And then these people over here, you have to love them. Because the word says you have to love them. But now who I don't know who needs more help, him or me. And so the commentary kind of helped me. Okay, this is what we're dealing with. And so now if I have to deal with it in love, and I have to exude grace, the same grace He showed me, then I have to deal with these people. And so here's some people that we've dealt with all these people before. So this was our approach. This is like Paul dealt with all the time. I have to do Paul. I'm out there, people trying to cut my head off. They throw me in prison. And I still have to. Even the churches that I built, y'all, y'all cutting up. What's the creek? Now you saying ain't even no resurrection. So now Paul dealing with it.
Yeah.
Now I'm dealing with some people.
He's dealing with a whole bunch of stuff.
Like I said, I'm not playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of it is a matter of attitude. Like I said, if we're gonna do this, and if we're really gonna help people, then you can't pick and choose the kind of people you're gonna help. So now I've experienced where he don't always send me people easy to help. So I don't know.
What he sent me the other day?
Yeah, he don't.
Well,
you thought it was
hard one to help.
You thought you was helping them. That's not why he sent you. He sent you there because they gonna help you.
You realize what I really want to be.
As soon as you walk up, they gonna hold a mirror to your face. This is what you look like.
All right. With that being said, everybody good? All right. If there's other things throughout the week, of course we'll share them. I will definitely share an email with all the stuff that I've been able to run into with the different schools of thought and the oral law, and they'll help bring things out to light. When Yeshua was talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees. Other than that, let's pray. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for this Sabbath day where we can come and sup, fellowship, build one another up in love and support and encouragement. Thank you for what was brought out, what was said. Thank you for understanding and comprehension. And most importantly, thank you for wisdom and discernment to know when and how to apply your word throughout our day walking journey. Thank you for what was brought, the edification. Thank you for thought-provoking conversation that will help us throughout the week to help someone else. Thank you for allowing us to get closer to you. Thank you for forgiveness. Thank you for this renewed covenant, Heavenly Father, that we have a chance again to come into right standing and come back to you, our Father, in holiness and in love. Thank you so very much. We thank you for forgiveness. This is unmerited favor. And we can do nothing and be nothing without you. Want to be whom you created us to be to the best of our ability. And we give you all praise. Thank you. We can't praise and thank you enough for what you've done, what you're doing now, and what you're going to do. We are your children. We love you sincerely, even though we might mess up. We love you. We thank you for the opportunity and the grace and the mercy that you've given us to try again. To try again, you, Heavenly Father. We want to say, please dismiss us from this place, from your presence. We ask these and all of the blessings in your darling Son, Yeshua's name, the Shem Yeshua HaMashiach Na. Amen.
Yes, oh my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. I said I will bless the Lord. Name.